Welcome to the July 14th, 2000 and... Set? All right, try it again. Take two.
Yeah, you're way ahead of me there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 14th, 2015 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and Riversway Act and the Milton Town Bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, two things. We always introduce ourselves, and we have a record tape recorder running. So if you wish to speak, I'd ask that you identify yourself so the record will reflect that. Judith?
Darrell Kemp,
My name is John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Alfred Doyle.
Kathy Bone.
First on the agenda is notice of intent is 0 Central Avenue. That's the town of Milton. They have made a written request that we continue the hearing until our August meeting, which is, what's the date, Judith? Judith, I'm sorry. You know, Kathy would know. I'm looking at Kathy and talking. 11th. All right. Any comment? We can continue that until the 11th?
Yep.
Next on the agenda, number 2, is request for determination of applicability. That's the DCR, the Blue Hill Ski Area Development. Anybody here from DCR?
Yes.
All right, would you come forward, sir?
Full speed ahead. No, this is a good thing. Oh.
Move that down to some keys. That's perfect.
I did bring some copies of the application. I don't know if anyone needs a copy.
I'm okay.
I think we all have them. Everybody else set? Yeah.
It was in the package.
Thanks. Could you introduce yourself for our record and tell us what we need to know?
Okay, hi, my name is Jim Jackson. I'm a project manager at CDR McGuire, and we're working for the Massachusetts Department of
The one you use the microphone.
this one here.
Yeah, you can pick it up.
Okay. Start. Hi, my name is Jim Jackson. I'm a project manager for CDR McGuire, and we're representing the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation for a project that they're doing at the Blue Hills Reservation. The project is to construct a pump station to serve the Blue Hills ski area. They have a contractor who runs the ski area, and they're having problems with their snowmaking pumping system. They need a new one. And they also want to upgrade the water service so that they're tied into the Milton service. It's actually a little more economical for them, and we'll be able to...
Instead of Canton?
In Canton they're in now, yes. And to be more economical and be able to provide more water for them to continue their snowmaking systems.
Does that mean that this is, I'm just curious, I'm not sure it's environmentally significant, but do they pay then for the water from Milton as opposed to paying Canton?
They will be, yes. Right now they buy all the water from Canton. With the new water connection into the Milton system, they'd be buying it from Milton, from the town of Milton Water Department.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So essentially, we have a plan here. This parking lot is off of Route 138. It's the ski area parking lot. And the lodge didn't quite make it onto the plan, but the ski area lodge is right on the lower portion here. Right now, they have a building here that has the pumps in it, and the pumps are kind of outdated, so they'd like to replace them anyways. And then with that project, they actually want to build a new pump station, new water service, and it'll have a new electrical system, so it'll be a complete upgrade of the system. And this, what it is, it's about a 300 horsepower pump that provides the water, pushes it up the mountain for the snowmaking system, so it has to hit the snowmaking systems under high pressure to make the snow.
That's a lot of power.
Yeah, it's
Isn't it?
yeah, it's a huge
Is
yeah, it's a
it?
huge pump. Yeah, yeah. It's so the building is 19 feet by 29 feet, so it's about 550 square feet. It'll be right at the bottom of the slopes, kind of tucked into the wooded area a little bit. They didn't want to lose too much of the slope area, but we've identified the larger trees, and we're going to avoid any larger trees, but we will be cutting some of the smaller trees, under 6-inch diameter.
Do you have those are my questions, actually, because I went through your notes today, and I had two. On G3, you get a note 19 about you're going to field locate the pump station to save as many trees as you can.
Yes.
What do you mean you're going to field locate it? I mean, what we're looking at is a plan that shows where it's going.
Yeah, if we have to move it a foot or two either way, if a foot or two either way would save a tree, we would want to be able to do that,
All right.
not hold rigidly to this plan, but, you know,
Okay, and then on C dash 03, there's a note that you're going to clear some trees, and I don't know if there's a survey that you've done. And second, there's another note that says the access road will include clearing. Can you tell us what trees will be removed for the access road?
okay, the access road is just running along the slopes, and it's actually fairly accessible now. It's part of the ski slope area.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so it's really not clearing, it's more leveling off and a little bit of grading. So it's generally a gravel area out there now, and it'll continue as a gravel area. Really won't be no tree clearing, maybe some grass and things, you know, just to put in the gravel.
Okay, and I appreciate and accept exactly what you just said. I'm concerned because these are the records coming in, and it sounds like there's tree clearing. Can you give us a survey and just tell us the number and caliper of tree? You don't have to measure, you
Yep.
know, 2-inch caliper, but if you've got something of substance, like above 6 inches or above 5 inches, tell us
Yes, we could do that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could provide a list, yeah.
what it is, because there may be a way to avoid that, you know, moving the access road, or as you said, moving the footprint of the pump house a foot or two. You might be able to save some trees. That's what we're
Yeah, we're going to
interested
try to do that. They did, you know, the ski area operator did want it kind of set into the edge of the wooded area. He didn't want to put it out in the middle of his ski area. They, you know, they set up the ski classes there. They need kind of that open area to do those things. They didn't want it right in the middle of that, you know.
But that's exactly why I'm asking the question. We want a tree survey. You just
Yep.
redoubled my concern.
Yep.
Because if you push it into the woods
Yep.
to save some other land, there might be a better alternative, at least from our perspective.
Yes, yeah, we can provide that. Yep.
Okay.
When do you anticipate doing this work?
They would like to, they're going to go out to bid next week. You know, so the bids will be coming in August. So any actual groundbreaking would probably be more towards like October, beginning of October.
But this fall?
Yeah, award it, you know, probably in September and then start working. The intent is to try to get it in online for the end of December for the snowmaking season. You know, they still have the other pump station that they could kind of nurse along if necessary, but they would like to have this up and running.
Well, how long would it take you to get a tree survey? When I'm talking about a survey, I'm just talking about what are you taking down?
Yep. Yeah, essentially we would go out and lay out the building and count the trees. We could have it by the end of the week.
And
No,
probably
the-
not just the building, but the space around the building?
Yes, and the
that-
roadways, yes, yep,
Yeah, the whole, okay.
yep.
Right, because if you need construction equipment coming in, I mean, we might lose a few more trees unless the contractor is careful.
Yeah.
What I'm looking to, do we have any other site visits coming up? Because what I'd like to do is just take a look at, if you give us a tree survey and say you're only taking down 1 6-inch tree, we don't need to see it. But if you're taking down 15, you know, native birch trees or something, we'd want to know that. So we'd have some kind of a conditional approval. But if you could get it to us quickly, then we can go up and take a look at, depending on what it says.
Yeah, so what you would want is maybe we'd set the corners of the building and the
Sure.
disturbed areas and put a ribbon on the trees that we feel would need to be removed.
That would be great.
Yep, yes, we could do that.
Do we have anything else for a site walk, Kathy?
Yeah, probably 5 Holcroft Road.
Okay.
Those are
All
that addition.
right. Any this Saturday, next Saturday?
I'm not here either of those Saturdays.
Either one.
no.
What are our dates? Ingrid, I know, can't make the 22nd, but that's a Wednesday.
The next one is the 1st of August, after these two coming up.
Okay, I can't make the 1st of August.
Okay.
Any other Saturday.
What's the next date after that? Because our next meeting is the 11th. I don't want to slow down your construction plan, though. I don't want,
Thank you.
That would be the 8th.
the 8th. How about the 8th? Can you do that?
Yeah, I can,
All right, how
yeah.
about the 8th?
That'd be great, yep.
If we could meet up there, do you want to start at 6 a.m.?
No.
Sorry.
No, at
No.
Hurlcroft?
No.
See what it looks like and then go there.
Okay. So if we start at Hurlcroft at 8 o'clock, we'd be at Gun Hill by 8:30, so we'd certainly be at the Blue Hills by 9 o'clock.
Okay, I'd meet you there at 9 o'clock?
At 9 o'clock, is that okay?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off, because
No.
you still have other
Yeah,
information.
so that's
for us.
August 8th?
Correct.
Okay.
And where would you like to meet, right at the parking lot or?
Yeah.
Right below it.
You want me to write the parking lot right below?
Yeah.
Yes, that's good.
Sounds good.
I have some questions. You haven't talked at all about the wetlands, and I looked at the plan, and there's one area of, one of the sheets showed an area of wetland that was like hundreds of feet away. Also, but looking, before you switch the drawing?
Yep.
That drawing there, there's an elliptical or kind of an amorphous dash line, but there's no indication as to what that line indicates. And is that, I'm assuming that's not a wetland?
No, that's not a wetland. What that is that's an area where they did a little more detailed tree, on our surveyors who were out there. Instead of just showing the limits of trees, they went in there and actually measured the size of some of the trees to give us some idea of where to locate the pump station. So it's just the limits of their more detailed tree survey.
Okay.
They tried to
But
pick up.
apropos of what you just asked, we had within the last, 3 or 4 months? 6 months, maybe. We had a replanting plan that was right along the highway, and there's a very thin strip of
Oh,
wetlands there.
yes, right.
It may be closer to the...
Closer to the Trailside
to
Museum.
the Trailside Museum.
Yeah.
But there is something very, very close to the street, which actually surprised me. You remember that?
Yeah,
I do not.
I think it was in maybe the fall,
yeah.
that DCR was in here, or it might have been the Trailside Museum came in here.
Well, they were in here because of the pond at the Trailside
Well,
Museum.
they were cleaning, yeah, they were dredging or cleaning.
But they were also planting trees.
But they were also planting, and there was a strip along the highway that
But that's
they had
enough, that's
designated.
further away.
Yeah, it's up north a little bit from here.
Okay.
Well, we do have some work a little north. Look, we have, well, I'll go through on this plan, but then I will get to that
Okay.
area to the north a little bit. Yeah, so we have the building, we'll have the new electric service will run from the other side of 138. It'll run overhead across the parking lot and then be underground coming up to the pump station. So be, overhead across and then underground coming up to the station. And then right now, we have the base bid for the plans. We're gonna have a 12-inch water line coming to this point, and then a 6-inch tying in across 138. Ideally, we would put a 12-inch that will run to the north, and I can show you that on the other plan, because the 6-inch has enough water to maintain their needs for now, but it doesn't really have any long-term growth for them. So they would like to get the 12-inch line going. The 6-inch is kind of borderline as far as meeting their needs as far as snowmaking.
Does a 300 horsepower pump, is that going to affect everyone on that line? When they turn that pump on, are we draining water off of every sub line?
They'll have to be careful, they'll have to keep it down somewhat on the 6-inch line. If they tie into the 12-inch line, there'd be
There's
nothing.
no issue.
Yeah, there'd be no issue, yeah.
Well, that's a good question. Having to be careful doesn't help the homeowners in that area.
They'll have to they'll keep it dialed back to it, and they're getting approval from the water department to tie in, and they're gonna definitely have some controls on that.
Yeah, that might be beyond our jurisdiction,
Right.
but it's
Well,
a...
I just-
Yeah,
a legitimate point,
it's
though.
definitely a concern, yes. Yep.
Can you talk about the erosion control? Now, the plan shows that you're pretty much cutting in order to set this down, to set this into the hillside. Can you talk about erosion control on the uphill side? You can see all the grading.
Yeah, we're not really cutting in. We're gonna cut the trees, but we're gonna keep at the somewhat higher grades. Yeah, a little bit lower grades, but mainly the building's gonna be up on the back. On this side here will be sticking out of the ground more. Kind of if it had a
Retain-
basement, it'd be a walkout basement. But it's
So
just
it's a retaining wall?
the foundation will be retaining wall. Yeah, so you'd see the back of the foundation, about 6 feet of it on the back.
6 feet?
Height, yeah.
On the downhill side.
Yeah, on the downhill side. You really won't see it because it's wooded, but it's going to be kind of out of the ground like that. Instead of going down deep where we would have difficulty getting access, then we would have to put access around the back, and we'd really be clearing a lot. We want to keep the access to the building will be on the already cleared side, on the front.
On the street side, can you go over that? You said you won't be able to see the 6 feet of foundation because it's wooded.
Yeah, so this back, like the west side of the foundation, there will be a drop. If you were to walk from the slab level, it would drop down about 5 or 6 feet.
So where's the wood?
This area is all trees wooded here. So from the parking lot, you would just see the trees. You won't see the back of this building.
All right, so it really is in the, I'm sorry, I thought it was further towards the existing ski house.
No, it's.
Where it was
Yeah,
open.
this is all wooded here.
Oh, okay. Oh, you definitely need a sidewalk.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. All right.
Because I can't quite picture it. Is it near the bunny slope? You know, where the bunny slope comes down?
That's pretty open.
That's wide open, though. There are trees.
That's where I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wide open going up, but there is, between the parking lot and the trail, it's a pretty good strip, of, good 100 feet of trees, wide tree area.
Left-hand side.
Yeah.
So there's a road going through there and the footprint of the building.
The road is going to stay up in the already cleared area, like the bunny slope area where the ski area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you measuring from for our jurisdiction? Can you just point out the wetlands?
Yeah, for wetlands, we had. Okay, so this is a little smaller drawing, but here's the new pump station. Here's the ski area parking lot. Here's the museum parking down here. So we're going to be, we would like to, in an alternate to the bids, have a 12-inch water line that'll follow 138 along the parking lots and tie into a 16-inch water line in this area here, beyond the museum building. And the wetland we were identifying as a pond here. And we had our surveyor, look for wetlands. He didn't see anything, in the pump house area, didn't find anything. And it sounds like,
Where's the trail side?
Right there, right next to the left of the pond.
yeah,
It's a gray block.
Oh, that pond is the Trailside Museum.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we will be running the new water line along the edge of the parking lot, in the paved area.
So is the building itself jurisdictional for us, or is it that component of the project that's the water line?
We wanted to bring the whole project to you just to make sure there weren't any issues. DCR likes to be cautious.
But
And
now,
that-
just at the end of the parking lot going towards the Trailside Museum, there's the native plants garden that's there as well. Are you aware of that? It's a pretty substantial garden.
They
that
just
was
planted
put in.
that.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
a
I was
year and a
talking
half
about.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that long ago.
That's, are you going near that area? I mean, how far
Sounds
in
like they're
from the
going
street
right
are
through
you?
it.
We're in the on the edge of the parking lot on the street side.
On the street side?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to come in about 3 or 4 feet. So what we'll do is, we'll take out that part of the pavement and just repave it.
The portion that we're talking about doesn't have any parking lot. This is the portion between the trail side and the pond and the road in
So this area
138.
here?
It's that whole zone is not parking. It's
Yeah.
planted.
Yeah.
Planted.
We're gonna
There's no
stay in-
pavement there.
Yeah, we're going to stay in the grassed area there, in that area. It's the grass.
We can walk
Yeah.
it, right?
We need to walk it,
Because I don't
yeah.
think you can stay on the, because
I-
that's where the
yeah.
garden is.
That's where the garden is, and it goes pretty much, maybe there's this, I guess there might be a little bit of pavement, grass area, but not much. Yeah, we need to look at that.
Okay, we'll look at it and we'll mark it out and we
Yeah,
can look at
that's
it.
an important garden.
What is the pipe that you're planning on using for the run?
It's 12-inch, 12-inch ductile iron pipe.
It's plastic or is it steel or?
We're using, it's ductile iron.
Ductile line, oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I didn't hear that. So there's not a lot of flexibility in it, it's pretty much a straight shot.
You can bend a few degrees each section.
Yeah.
If you really have to bend, you can put a connection on it,
Right.
and bend it. But it's pretty much a straight shot.
Well, it doesn't give it, a
If
straight
we had-
shot, it's for you,
Yeah.
potentially it's through everything we don't want to go through.
Oh, if there was an issue, if there was something we had to avoid, we could put, bends on it
Right.
and go around it. We certainly could do that, yeah. Right now, we're showing it pretty straight. And I've walked it. I didn't see the gardens, but we'll certainly look at that.
Yeah, it's right, there's the walkway up to the trail side, there's the parking lot, and then there's the walkway. And it's right next to the walkway, going towards the parking lot.
Okay, yeah, I'll look closely at it. We were out there mostly in the wintertime and didn't see
Okay,
too
yeah,
much, but.
right now
take
it's
a look.
all in bloom, so.
All right, yeah, we'll definitely, if we are getting near that, we'll definitely do something to avoid that.
What's the distance from the footprint of the building to the pond?
We were looking, from the water line, we were about 80 feet,
That, to the building they're proposing, that's hundreds of feet. You're talking
Yeah,
probably
probably.
300, right?
Yeah, 300 feet, maybe more, 400 or 500.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, the closest we were getting was with the water line work, which was about 80 feet.
okay.
And the only wetland that you've seen is associated with the pond. There are no wetlands associated, as John had mentioned earlier, along the parking lot, between the parking lot and 138. None of that's,
Yeah, we didn't see anything
Didn't see
when
anything.
our surveyor and wetland biologist went out.
Do you remember, I know I just said 6 months ago, last fall, you might be right, maybe longer ago than
Yeah, I
that,
think
but I
it's a little
thought they came
longer.
up, I thought DCR came up with
Planting.
some isolated, they did come up with plantings, but I thought they had some isolated wetlands along 138.
well, we have the drawings, we can,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Can you,
we can
Kathy,
look
can
at
you
it.
just take a look
Let's
at that?
Yeah.
or bring it
That
to the
plan.
sidewalk.
Yeah, that'd be good, yeah. Anything else, Mike? Arthur, any questions? Judith?
So August 8th. Okay.
Any questions from abutters, members of the public? Questions, comments, suggestions? Hearing none, and with the assent of the applicant, we'll continue this until August 8th at 9 a.m.
Okay.
On site.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, just one comment on sheet 11. I found up in the upper left-hand quadrant, there was some truncation of wording. Will you just take a look and see if there's anything that is critical to us?
Yes, yeah, I'll check that.
Thank you.
It shouldn't be, that's a structural drawing, it shouldn't really, but we'll check to make sure it's.
What is it?
The viewport cut off all the text.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Disappearing words. All right, Jim, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is, oh, sure, did you, oh, okay, thanks. You can take your time.
Jenny Swenson, 65 Green Street, Milton, resident. Also on the board of the Friends of Blue Hills and the Bond Bill Coalition, the Blue Hills Bond Bill Coalition. I've had the opportunity to work with Vero, who's also here tonight. He runs the Blue Hills ski area. And because of my work with the Blue Hills and with the Bond Bill, we're excited about this new opportunity for the ski area, Blue Hills ski area. It'll be a wonderful win for the community, for all the wonderful recreational uses. And we are working diligently with Senator Joyce on the bond bill to support this effort, as well as many efforts in Blue Hills. And when you have a win for the Blue Hills ski area, you see another, trailside museum benefits and the observatory tower benefits. And where we're asking for so much money from the state, it always helps when there's local support for these initiatives. So these organizations are in support of this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Nope. Hearing anything from the Blue Hills, from the ski slope?
I apologize for getting it, I just got in from the airport, so,
All right, but you're in support?
absolutely.
All right. All right.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Next on the agenda, number 3, is notice of intent, 5 Hillcroft Road.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, thank you for coming.
Jamie Stillman, resident, 5 Hillcroft Road. And we're looking to add a deck to the back of our house, so it would be 12 feet deep, 16 feet in width.
Do you know how far it would be from, we've been actually recently on your property or next door. Was it 9? Right. And by the way, those bushes out front of your house, those are beautiful.
Which ones? There's
So
a lot.
the ones, you've got roses and you've got the
Thank you.
evergreen stuff.
Thank you.
Very
We
nice
try.
stuff.
It's one of the first houses when you come into the neighborhood, so we try.
Absolutely. But do you know how far this is? I know it says 39 feet, somewhere I saw 39 feet from, where did I see it? You've got a plan here, right?
Yeah, last page, yeah.
And I
Oh,
think,
there are two different. You want this one?
yeah, let me see, because I don't have it on the last page of
So-
this one.
The surveyor didn't put the exact distance from where that corner will be from the edge of the water. That's something.
Right, that's right. That looks like a property line measurement.
It's a survey of the plot.
Right, but we just need to make sure, this looks like it's gonna fit, beautifully, so not to worry. But we've got this 25-foot non-disturb zone from the edge of the resource area, and I can't tell from this where the resource area is.
So which resource area would you be
Well, it's
questioning?
Gulliver's Creek, actually, that I know it kind of goes in underneath, it actually goes under Squantum Street. So you're close to it. You can probably eyeball it, because we've actually done a number of decks right down Hurlcroft Street.
Yeah, I mean,
We did a one at
there's-
9 and one at 17.
The pictures
couple.
don't give you exact distance, but I mean, there's quite a ways between where that deck is, and there's an existing patio that's there that is much closer. There's a 23 by 13 foot or 12-foot deep patio that it's existing that's much closer to where
So
the deck is.
the new deck is going over the old patio?
You'll
and
see the
old-
pictures.
The old patio is being removed?
No, patio's staying there.
Oh, it is?
The deck's closer to the street, closer to Hillcroft Street.
First house on the corner?
Yes,
If I remember correctly, Gulliver's is on the far side of the garage, correct?
correct.
So it's right behind your house.
So the garage is actually about 20 feet off of Gulliver's. So
Right.
the distance it's quite a ways.
Okay, all right. I don't mean to sound like a stickler, but we have this 25-foot non-disturb zone, and it appears to be you're well outside of it. But we just need some record that it is.
I mean, it's visual, coming out and seeing it.
That'll help. That will help. And I think if we could meet at your house at 8 o'clock on Saturday, the
Sure.
8th of August, 8 a.m., and we'll be able to figure it out from there.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a Google map, and it looks like it's about 100 feet from the back of your property.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Did your
Where's the
surveyor
street?
stake the edge of the
Right there, see
wetland?
blue line? There's the
We
street.
did not.
There's
did
the
not.
We
line.
did a
Yeah.
strictly
So
plot
this
survey
property's right here.
of the property.
Sure.
The wetland would,
Feet out there.
If you use
have to get a
proper
botanist
bank,
in there,
that's
you
true.
said.
Yeah.
But it's
The
not a
botanist would
proper
have to
bank
stake
area.
everything
It's
out.
Pretty
Sure.
We're
flooded
so
Yeah,
far off,
we'll
you'll
look at it
see
right
it,
there.
that
Yeah.
I didn't think that would be necessary.
What's that?
I was just
He
asking
asked if
whether or
the
not-
survey staked it out. I said, we would have had to get a botanist, and, it would have been a rush job to get it in here by everything.
Right.
So,
We certainly know the area, and then we've done this in the past where we
Yeah.
can just, when I say eyeball it, I don't mean that we don't have a tape measure. We'll have
Sure.
a tape
We'll have
measure,
a tape
but
measure.
No,
but it's not like we need a surveyor crew out there.
I'll supply the walking roller for you, the walking tape measure.
Really?
All right,
We should get one of those.
I know.
I have one if you want.
With our budget?
He's holding out on you.
All right, and what about the structure itself? What do you intend on dropping down? Are these pylons, are these?
There'll be footings, standard footing sonotubes. They're going to go down until they hit solid, whatever the building code requires.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at
Yeah,
about
I actually did see that.
8 to 11 footings, I would imagine.
Yeah. There was a comment in there that I, not from conservation. It says that you will go down to solid material or the code requirements, but the way it's written implies that if you hit solid material before then, you're gonna stop. But it depends on what you
That's a
hit.
contractor thing.
Oh, okay.
And, I mean, the contractor wrote that proposal up.
Yeah.
So,
It's not really our purview, but it's written poorly. It's open to misinterpretation. Yeah, that's what I meant.
I can address that with him, with
Yep.
the contractor.
But it's not really our purview, that's the building department.
And the stairs that you're talking about leaving open and doing it at a later time, that's, if I'm correct from looking at this, that's on the Holcroft Road side? So that'll be further away from Gulliver's Creek. Okay.
When we were there last winter on your neighbor's back deck, there was a lot of wood piled up. It looked like cut wood in your yard that we were noticing.
My brother's a landscaper, so
Okay.
he drops off wood, we burn it.
You hadn't cut trees on your property? it was
No,
from-
anything that's been cleared, actually, no, there was one tree that we cut down when we first moved in, but anything that's been cleared was cleared before we moved in. We've been in the house for about 2.5 years now. There was one tree that was, and it was hollow. It was dead, and it was just dead, and it was hanging on the house, so we had that cut down.
Just so that we're consistent, if you're altering that, you're in an ACEC, just
That's an
call
area
us,
of critical environmental concern.
Mhm.
Yeah.
which you know because it's in your application. But we try to make sure that people contact us because we get reports quite often, say, hey, somebody's cutting down, and so Kathy has to go out and find out how come you cut it down without asking us. Maintenance is not an issue. Dead trees are sometimes public safety issues. So we're pretty user-friendly.
Yeah.
But if you see anything like that in the future, come to see us.
Okay.
Please.
There's a lot that's dead back there. I don't know if you guys just let it fall or what, but,
We can talk about it when we're
We can
there.
talk about that,
When,
yeah.
when we're there.
okay, perfect.
All right, we'll have a chance to take
As
a look
long
at
as
it.
it's not a safety issue,
Yeah.
we like dead trees.
Well, it
There's
creates
more
a
life-
habitat.
There's more life in a dead tree than a
Yep.
living tree, so, yeah, habitat.
How do you figure that? There's more life in a dead tree than in a living tree.
And that's true. Isn't that amazing?
Ask the tree
It's
that.
true.
Yeah.
It is true. There's more life in a dead tree than in a living tree.
All right.
There is.
Okay. All right, now, so we've got a site walk set for 8 a.m. on Saturday, the 8th of August. But before we, are there any other questions from commissioners?
No.
Are there abutters, members of the public that have a question or a comment? Do you have anything else to add?
Unless there's anything else that you'd like to ask?
I don't think so. We'll see you on Saturday morning, the 8th of
Great.
August.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much.
Have a nice evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is, next on the agenda is abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, 1383 Brush Hill Road. This is a continued hearing. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Andrew Hack.
Hey,
Nice to meet face to face.
there you go.
Who's that guy?
So, Andrew Hack, Scott Goddard, professional wetland scientist, owner of Goddard Consulting. You guys have seen me before. And I was asked to give a sort of an independent review of the line. I know there was one area discrepancy after the site walk, so it was.
Independent.
Independent, exactly.
All right.
Let's call it a.
You're a fair guy.
Okay. So Nicole Hayes from my office, she's a professional wetland scientist as well, and been doing it for 20 years, delineated the line. I know you guys walked it. There was one area of discrepancy between flags about 3 to 15 where there was 1 or 2 pink flags added as an area of like a little triangle to kind of reevaluate and see if that was potentially more properly included within the BVW delineation. So that was left, as I understand, because I wasn't at that site walk, open question. So I was asked by Bob Hannigan to go out and take a look at it. I went out there by myself. I created a DEP data sheet, which was submitted to the board. And my findings were that I believe, looking at it sort of, and again, I know it's not completely independent, right, because we're with the same company, but I looked at it kind of with fresh eyes to say, if I was here, how would I have done this delineation as well? And in my opinion, what was done on the ground by Nicole was done properly, and I think the data sheets support that. So the vegetation in that triangle is kind of a mixed bag, right? It's about a 50-50 mix. There's some invasive stuff in there. There's some wetland stuff, but there's not an overwhelming dominance of kind of wetland stuff growing in there. It's a kind of a split environment. It's a very transitional zone. I did soil probes in that area as well. They came up fairly strong upland indicator soils throughout that area, and there were no other indicators of hydrology that would drive the criteria, because in the BVW delineation handbook and in the regulations, it's a bordering vegetated wetland where we have to have vegetation and supporting hydrology. So there's a kind of a 2-parameter approach in Massachusetts. Hydric soils is an indicator of hydrology, a very good one in fact, and other indicators can be considered as well. So once you get below the delineated wetland boundary where those blue flags are hung, the soils transition into a strong hydric soil condition. There's other topical staining of the leaves, puddling areas that you can see happens in the springtime. So I'm seeking that this commission support the delineation that's on the ground, and I believe it's backed up by the data sheets.
Quick question. So what you're saying is that without soil without delineation based on soils, it cannot be a bordering vegetated wetland.
What I'm
Based
saying
on-
is,
Based on what you said, it needs to have both
you
of
need to
them.
have
The
wetland
plants.
vegetation and an indicator of hydrology. Soils is one of the indicators of hydrology. You can have other indicators, but so you don't have to have the soils. There could be other indicators of hydrology, but it's one of the strongest indicators of hydrology that we have, right? So if you just have wetland plants
Yep.
and no indicators of hydrology, then you don't have a wetland. That was the pre-1995 approach
Sure.
under the 83 regulations. In 95, it switched to add hydrology as an indicator.
All right, now, I took Latin in the
Yep.
8th grade.
Excellent.
But I've forgotten almost everything I learned. And when I looked at your the scientific names, can you help me with some of what you saw? Because in your letter, you're talking about your conclusion, the area was dominant in red maple, Norway maple, spice bush, burning bush, American bittersweet, poison ivy, New York fern, and Virginia creeper. But one of the concerns that we had when we were there, and you may have just answered this by saying that it's kind of a mix 50-50.
Sure.
But we did identify wetland plants there, and you didn't mention them.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's-
so in the data sheet that you're looking at right here, it does list.
We saw the jewel weed,
Mhm.
that was there definitely, the cluster was there.
Sure.
You're saying you didn't see enough of it, you're saying percentage-wise, there wasn't enough of it?
Right, so are you guys familiar with how these percentages are calculated? Right, so you look at by layer, you look at the percent coverage from the sky within either a 30-foot zone or a 15-foot zone or a 5-foot zone in the case of herbaceous. And then you have to basically scale each layer up to 100 percentile. Anything that's a dominant is going to be defined as something that has a 20% dominance coverage within that zone. So you're going to have dominant coverage within the tree zone, the sapling zone, the climbing woody vine zone, the shrub zone, and the herbaceous layer zone. Anything that's 20% or over is automatically a dominant, right? So just because if you have like if you look at the herbaceous layer, there's a lot of herbaceous stuff. And this was a characterization, not of a data plot with a perfect circle. This is looking at the triangle of question, right? So you sort of skew the data plot to look at the areas in question, because really these data forms are meant for broad application of, is this area generally a wetland and this area generally an upland, right? So, but when you start threading the needle and looking at specific areas, it is appropriate and I think correct to look at a discrete zone. So I took that zone between flag 3, those pink data points, flag 15, and looked at that triangle. That's what this represents. That's why there's so many herbaceous stuff, because typically in the herbaceous layer you're looking at a 5-foot zone. 5 foot's a very small zone. This was a bigger area, so that we have a lot more. So anyways, I took everything, you skew it up to the 100 percentile coverage, 20%, 20%, 20% always get you in there. If you don't get there with the 20 percentiles, you have to have at least 50 cumulatively. So then you throw anything else that gets you in there till you get over cumulative of 50%. So you need to have at least 20, 20, and then something else to get you over the 50 cumulative. So that's why this last category here is the test of whether it counts as a dominant or not. So wherever you see the yeses, that meets the dominance threshold, meaning within that layer that's more prevalent than the other ones. Those are the ones you add up and see where you get the 50-50. Now you add it up, and it's close, right? I mean, we have wetland indicator dominance of 5, non-wetland indicators of 4. So there's a slight more wetland dominant species in there. So I'm recognizing that, yes,
We saw that.
it meets the, quote, 50% criteria for bordering vegetated wetlands. But short of having another indicator of hydrology, it doesn't really matter in a sense, right? So you can have, you've seen hillsides with poison ivy and things like that, right? That's a wetland indicator species, but there's no hydrology. Right. So you have to have hydrology and wetland plants. In this case, we do meet the letter of the law for having the presence of wetland plants in that area. We just don't have the supporting hydrology.
You didn't see any American elms there at all? I thought we saw some smaller ones.
You know what, there were some elms, but not in that triangle. They were just outside of the triangle, but there were elms there. And then when you got into the wetland, there were more. So we can look at this vegetation list all day long, but I'm conceding the fact there's a dominance of wetland vegetation in the area.
Right.
So we're there, right? You have it.
Yeah.
You meet the definition, but we just don't get there in terms of being a BVW. That's all. Because if you look at the soils data, it's primarily like a bright 4-4 subsoil in the B layer. So and it lacks redoxamorphic features. So without the redox features or a higher matrix color, chroma, then we're just not there in terms of hydric soils. And there wasn't other signs of leaf staining, puddling, and things like that within that zone.
When you say redoxive features, you mean modeling?
Modeling.
Right.
Mhm. Yep.
Help me out here. What about plethora? Where is that?
That's sweet pepper, spice bush and sweet pepper bush we saw.
Which one? Where? I'm just going to find
Spice
it.
bush up top the shrub layer and also the ground cover.
Yep. So if it's
okay.
greater than 3 feet tall, you throw it in the shrub layer.
Okay. And
So
what
the
about
spice
Jack?
bush,
I'm sorry. go
No,
ahead.
I'm just gonna say spice bush is a dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of space bush in there.
And we did see Jack in the Pulpit, but I don't know that we saw it in this triangle, John. I
That's
think-
just
It was,
it.
it was actually upland of this triangle.
Okay.
It was. There was some sprigs of
That's
Jack in the Pulpit.
was.
Yep, kind of creeping around in there. But it was uphill of this triangle, right?
And what else did we see? Woodland geranium.
There was some woodland geranium in there. Again, I think there might have been a little bit inside,
Yeah,
but I didn't have a definitive ID on it. I didn't include it in.
But-
There was one of the geraniums.
okay,
Was it-
woodland, yeah.
But what you're saying is, this is all irrelevant, because in
It's
the
an
end,
interesting
it's an
academic
interesting
exercise,
study.
but I'm already conceding your point, right?
Right,
So,
Okay.
but
about-
your point is that you don't have the supporting data from the hydric soil side,
Correct,
and therefore, this is irrelevant.
correct. Because you need both.
Right.
Right.
There are actually 3 lines. And it sounds like you're trying to get us to go back to the first line, which is uphill battle. When we first went
Maybe I
there.
could just intervene.
Okay.
Because it's my lines. At some basic level, we're happy with our proposal, which is to take the more conservative of the two sets of lines, but not encompassing the additional triangle that was added and that you asked to have delineated.
Okay.
So,
Do you-
that
do
was
you-
our proposal at the last meeting, and you asked us to go back and have somebody go through the additional area that was added to decide whether or not that was included. We're willing to concede the more conservative set of the original lines.
Okay.
We just don't want to add the triangle that was.
And that's what, yeah, that's what we're talking, we're talking about the triangle.
You're talking about what?
The triangle.
What we're discussing is the triangle.
Right, but
Yeah.
you said that you were going back to Nicole's line, and we did not accept
Well,
that
I
line.
mean, I believe it's accurate, but if there was a concession to look at
The
this.
triangle's actually
you know,
not on
versus
this.
the quote, the 40B line, right, then if that was an agreement, then that's fine too. You know, I'm talking about the triangle in general.
Okay.
Okay.
Any concerns? I mean, it's a balancing test. It's not, and we've gone through this, I can't tell you, Scott, how many times we've gone through this.
Sure.
About whether or not it's one criteria or another criteria or a mix. And I think we generally come from the consensus mixture of, totality of circumstances as to what is a wetland area. And I don't quarrel with your definition that there are other criteria to be considered. But I think we've got a dominant wetlands species.
Yeah, and we can break out the regs, and that's why they changed the regs in 95 to be specific.
I've been here since '93,
Yeah.
and we go through this probably every other month
Oh,
with a different wetland scientist.
I understand.
Some come in and say it's only soils, some come in and say it's only flora, and others come in and say it's both. And we've
Some
heard
will
them
come in
all.
and tell you it's 3, right? It's hydrology, soils, and veg. So-
We've heard it all.
I understand. We can open up the regs and go through the regs if you want, but
We've done that too.
I'm pretty sound on this deal.
We've done that too, and we're pretty sound on it.
Yeah.
And my concern is that when you were going off in terms of Nicole's line, but the applicant has indicated that you're okay with the other more conservative
Yeah,
line.
what we did, I mean, just to refresh the discussion from 3 weeks ago, there were 2 different lines done. There was the 40B line done, and there was Nicole's line done. And they have somewhat different boundaries. And we're happy to accept the more conservative blending of those 2 lines. In each place where there's a more conservative one, we're happy to take the more conservative one. The issue that was raised was the further area outside of both of those lines, which was defined by the burning bush, and which is what prompted us to ask Scott to return and go through that area and ask if that area, in addition, needed to be creating a new 100-foot line that it goes well beyond these lines that we discussed here. And so we send him out to go through that
you know,
area.
I agree, and I appreciate what you're saying. Actually, I think the way that it was described in the map that we got the last time, it was actually larger than we had indicated. I think it showed a line going from, I'm going to guess now, 15 to 4, and I think actually it was 15 to 6. It actually cut off. It was not as great as you just indicated. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I...
You know, so with respect to the original lines, we're happy to take the more conservative set of the two original surveys. The question that you posed to us
Correct.
was to go back outside of those lines to the area of the burning bush, which creates an additional area, and ask what is that area? Should that additionally be considered as a wetland area? And so we asked Scott to go out and take that area, and if I can approach you, I don't know what documentation you have in front of you, but I have our documentation from the last visit that we had with you, and we could talk about that, just so everyone's clear on the
Yeah,
map.
those, we should have all of those.
Right, we should, just, you know, because look, you guys have a lot of, you know, things on the docket every month, and so I don't want there to be any confusion about it.
Right, so the,
Yeah, if you got them, that'd be
I
great.
have
so I think
what we proposed last time, maybe Scott can.
what we're saying is where the 40B line comes above the Nicole line, we'll just take the more conservative of the
There
two
was
lines.
additionally a burning bush sitting out here. And on your walk, you had added some markers that created an additional triangle here.
Correct.
And then if you swing a 100-foot line off of that, what you get is a line that looks like that. If you use the burning bush.
It wouldn't be that far, because we went from, the only correction we had was from C15 over to, and the question last time was between like, was it 5?
I can do that.
Or-
So those pink flag was right about here. And so the question and the area of evaluation was this.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
That's what I did the data sheet on right
That's
there.
right.
But what we're saying is,
The 100-foot line would come out, instead of there defining where the 100-foot line is, if you went all the way out to the burning bush that was sitting out here, it would take the 100-foot, and you did a 100-foot line that
Right. So
comes
instead-
off of that point, you'd cover a very
Oh,
substantial
okay.
amount of the property.
instead of coming to the pink flag, which I don't think is correct, we will come up to where what we're calling the 40B line
think-
is here, which is
which
kind
is-
of like splitting the difference, as it were.
I think the thing that you might not be aware of is that the 100-foot is a jurisdictional line, it's not a no-build line.
Yeah,
The
no, I get it,
25,
absolutely.
Yeah.
25-foot is the,
Understand completely.
so the 100-foot might, oh, excuse me. The 100-foot line might, in the end, make no difference at all to you.
Agreed.
Okay.
Absolutely agree.
Okay.
I think the way we left this at our last meeting was you said, we did our walk, there's a species outside of what you've delineated.
Right.
It's a wetland species. We'd like you to hire somebody to go and do an evaluation of the area defined by that burning bush.
Right.
And the 2 points back here on this line here, that created the triangle that Scott went out
Right.
and evaluated in detail. You can see all the counts here from that evaluation and the soil testing.
Right.
And his description of the condition, because, I mean, and you know, some people have said to me, look, don't even bother, make the whole thing the 100-foot line, take the whole property. But I think I appreciate your attitude, was we want to get it right here.
Right.
The goal is to get it right here, and then we'll be back with our proposal, you know, when it's time for that. So I get that, but I think the spirit of the last meeting was, hey, look, we're a data-driven organization.
Right.
Our goal is to get it right. And so why don't you send somebody out there to go give expert opinion? And so we've done that. And that's the purpose of the discussion tonight.
Okay.
Here, if it's helpful.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
it
you.
is,
Yes,
because-
thank you.
Remember,
Yes, no, because you have so many
We didn't-
matters
we-
in front of you at all times. I mean, there's no
Right.
way to remember every
but I remember
last case.
I remember the sequence at our last
Well,
meeting.
the species was right. I mean, your comment was right, which is that there are wetland species in that area. The conclusion of the expert is that there's a dual criteria for wetland determination. And he, you know, Scott, I think, made it clear, the way the regulations read in his mind is that you need the species and the soil, both criteria. You were absolutely right on the species, no question about it. But then the dual criteria, the soils by his determination, and please correct me if that's
No, that's a
not
fair-
correct.
fair
No, no, I
The soils,
understand,
okay.
and I don't disagree with what you just said. What I disagree with is that we have the discretion to consider, you know, a mixture of criteria.
Sure.
And one doesn't, there's no blackball that puts in, says, you can't have it because it's not soils. I think you can have it if you've got it with another criteria. But I know you've added the hydrology from staining, and those are issues. But I'm looking for a consensus-driven organization here. So I'd like to hear from abutters or members of the public. Anybody that has a comment or a question? Anybody? I know there are some folks from the neighborhood there.
It's a little bit of out of our expertise. We obviously care to, like you all, to do it right and do it well, but I think it's kind of, we leave it to you.
Would you like the mic?
No. Ms. Swenson, no, thank you very much. I can identify you for the record.
I'm comfortable with the compromise. I think it is an art as well as a science. And eventually, how you evaluate this, as you say, it's not perfectly etched in stone, black and white. And I think not finding the hydric soil, both when we were there and in Scott's review, I think that's legitimate. And the fact that we saw both types of plants had us kind of scratching our heads that day, you know. So I think to look at what we're calling the 40B line, I'm happy to go along with that. I think it still preserves so much of that area that is wet, needs to be. There were so many mosquitoes that day, I just remember it's wet down here.
Unfortunately, when I go there as well.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with accepting that line.
Do you have a view?
In terms of the flora, I defer to Judith, and I agree with what Judith just said, in terms of being comfortable with the conservative interpretation of the two previous lines.
Okay.
And the information that we have in front of us concerning the dominance.
The dominance is wetland.
Dominance is wetland.
Arthur?
I'm comfortable with the conservative line proposed.
Okay. Okay.
And can we give them new plans if it's not?
Yeah, and I will say that
Well, we should give you a cleaned up singular
Yes.
picture there with one line.
Yes,
You know, I should have come with them, we brought that last time, but I should have come again with the
Right.
proposed conservative grouping of line, so we didn't have all these lines on, so we'll have that for you, absolutely.
okay, but I would like both plans, because I know, and I think I kept mine, but I believe I left them in my car, because we received two drawings from Bob Hannigan. The one we received, the first one, was not the one we were looking for. And I asked for the second one. He said, oh, I've got that one too. And then he handed us the second one with the more conservative line on it.
Correct.
So I want both of those lines both of those plans.
But there's only gonna be one that's gonna be referenced in the ORAD, so that's the plan that really needs to be in the file, right?
Correct, but that,
Correct.
but we need to have like the historic
Document,
plan
okay.
so that we can see,
Understood.
right.
right? Because you're right, there's going to be one plan with the most conservative blending both of the lines
Right.
together.
There were other modifications to the line besides just that, though. During the site work, wasn't there another modification that was done
Well, that's
as well?
what I
So
just
we're
wanted to
not
show you.
ignoring the other modifications, we're just saying this is the large, wasn't there another one that was a smaller? We actually absorbed a straight line, there was a whole
we did.
inlet that we got
Yes.
rid of?
We did.
Mhm.
Hang on a second.
I don't think it has
But I
any
think that
bearing.
gets sucked up into the blending though.
Yeah, I believe it does,
It's sort of
but,
overlap, right?
right, but we're not ignoring
We're
other
just not adding
modifications
an
that.
additional layer, which was the burning bush would have
Correct.
defined another further line.
Yes,
We're taking the two lines that have been officially demarcated, the 40B line and the line that not officially, but that have been demarcated in the past. And we're saying in each case, whichever is the more conservative set of points,
yes.
we'll take that series of points. The discussion here was to then say, should we be adding an additional area defined by the burning bush, creating that further triangle? And please, can we have Scott go out and do an analysis of that additional area? And he's given you his proposed.
So we owe
determination.
you a cleaned up plan. is
Yes,
the bottom
for
line.
sure.
Yeah.
All right,
And
now-
there was another change that needs to be incorporated. And it may be totally
I think
absorbed by
it's-
the
yeah, I think it's
conservative,
subsumed into
but
the
that's
other-
fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have it in your notes?
Yeah, I
John?
do. The minutes here from our site walk here, Bob Hannigan agreed to present a new plan showing the area in controversy which extends south from wetland flag 15 and then turns west to join wetland flag 4.
Right, that's what we just talked about.
Correct, but where did that one go?
It's over in your, oh, no, no, it's made its way.
So it's from 15 to, where is 4? That's 5, that's 4. 15 was there.
So what was the other area then?
It's 4, which I think is right there.
Wasn't there another area, though?
But there was, somebody came in and thought it was larger than that. And I said, no, no, it's actually smaller than that. But I think the triangle that
that's
you
exactly
did,
what we-
I think you're correct. So
Yeah, I
we
think
brought
you're
it
right.
back.
Yep.
And you might have
no other
even, you might have even made it larger, because if that's 5, then
Right.
that's probably 4, you may have gone down to 3, because that's 1, 2, 3. So I think you went down to 3, and I think, from my notes anyway.
So was there
It's
another
actually
area
full.
outside?
No, I
Wasn't
think
No,
this.
no, no, it was less than that.
No, this was the other area. See this line here? This is where we were, and we said this needs to go straighter. So actually, see, if this is the 40B line, we actually said, no, this other line should be straighter. That was
There
that
was an
area.
there was an inlet that we got rid of.
Exactly, right here. We got rid of this inlet right there. That's what you're thinking about, John, I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Right, so once you get the
Yeah.
merged plan in, it sounds like we're gonna be.
It sounds like we'll be
clean.
fine.
Yeah, this is the other one, this little section right here.
Because at
That's
that point, we're
specifically,
proposing to take the more conservative,
right, which is.
in every case, in any place where the
Exactly.
line is here or here, we'll take the more conservative, we'll take the more conservative, we'll
Right.
take the more
Exactly.
conservative.
Exactly.
We'll take, you know,
So that-
and that's what
that-
defines essentially its outer line,
Correct.
which will be the most
In that case.
conservative.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
right.
I think that's what you were thinking of, John.
No, I knew exactly what,
Oh, okay.
I was down here.
Okay.
The mistake that we actually talked about before is that they thought it went down to that. I think
see.
it only went to that.
Uh-huh.
Very small difference.
Uh-huh.
But that's what you're talking
As well,
about. I
that's
was
what I'm
talking about down there.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we able to close this meeting with that as a condition to the, you know, the ORAD that will get you that cleaned up plan?
I think you were ready to go. Any comments? Public, one more chance? All right, is there a motion to accept this, and because this is a abbreviated notice resource area delineation?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Done. It's contingent upon you getting us the final plan?
Absolutely.
You took my pen.
I did. And you know what, I haven't started to chew on it yet, so you're in okay shape.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, thank
All
you
right,
very much.
thanks. Okay, next on
Thank you
the,
very much.
Thank you.
next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 44 Cliff Road.
And there's pictures also.
Right.
No, that's what I do.
Oh, Judith has it?
This is it.
Hey, good evening.
Hello.
Have a seat and introduce
Oh,
yourself,
I remember
please.
this. This was great, what they were doing.
Hi, I'm Bridget Gaffney, the owner.
Okay, welcome.
You did good, really good.
Thank you.
Nice.
You saw
In the
my kids,
process.
they're all enjoying the space
Much
quite a
to
bit.
go, yeah. We'll start to fill in now. This is just this year you planted, last year?
In May, we planted it.
Just in May, wow. Yeah, it looks good. You seeing birds or butterflies or?
Butterflies, birds, bees. In the spring, there were a lot of caterpillars.
Nice,
That looks pretty nice.
yeah,
Thank you.
wow. Where did you get your plants from?
Cavicchio in Sudbury.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I think it's
Okay.
Cavicchio here.
All right.
Caviacello, something like that.
There was some,
Well, I think- I'm sorry, go on, Mike.
there was conversation when we were on site about taking down additional trees back in the forest to try to, I'm just recalling. right? Because there was a line that we said, and then there were additional trees that were back that were dead or dying, and there was concern about taking them down. Do you know if they took any of the trees?
The only one that they took down was the one that was the invasive, I forgot what
It
it
was
was
a
called.
buckthorn that you were going to take down?
Yeah.
And then remove some invasive
Okay, that's what you
species.
have, yeah.
It's actually on the order.
Yeah. And then the only other one there was a dead thing, and it actually fell over.
Oh, it did
So,
fall
yeah.
over. And you just left it? You just,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It may have rolled down the hill a bit, but yeah.
It does look, they look really nice.
Yeah,
Beautiful
thank you.
backyard, yeah.
And we have a letter here from Nielsen Landscape Design, from Andrea Nielsen Morse. It says, "Dear Kathy," to Conservation Agent, "This notification is to inform the Conservation Commission that the project at 44 Cliff Road in Milton, as described by the notice of intent and project narrative dated 9/17/2014, has been completed as planned with no deviations." From Andrea Nielsen Morse.
That's good.
All right? Do we need to see it?
Nope.
Any questions, comments from abutters, members of the public?
Unless you want to invite us over for cocktails or something.
We have plenty of space.
No, I
Okay,
think it looks
all right.
good.
Thank you.
So then is there a motion to issue the, issue a certificate of compliance?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion? All in favor? You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Nice
very
job.
much.
Yeah.
It looked very nice.
Thank you very much.
Really good work.
Those should go in there. All right, next on the agenda is partial request for certificate of compliance, Lot 3 Gun Hill Road. Continued hearing. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
How you doing? Jim DeSalle, DeSalle Burke and Associates. I think we were down to the last few things. I don't know. Did you get the pictures that Jimmy had sent?
Yeah,
I could not figure out the picture.
I can't figure them out either.
Okay. Well, I have another few cents, so.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's good.
Thanks, Steve.
There were three pictures of two pieces of riprap that was installed. I guess there was a couple of areas that had failed. I wasn't out there at the site walk, but Jimmy mentioned that they had pulled out the erosion control, which was requested. They put the riprap in those two areas, and you can see them on the two different pictures, and removed what he's calling bullbriar, whatever the invasive weed was. They pulled it and cut.
Did they cut back the lawn? When I look at these pictures, it appears though, when we were there, the drop-off was dramatic right at the edge of the lawn. And looking at this, it would appear to me that you've effectively cut the lawn back 3 or 4 feet in order to,
Put the riprap in, and then
and all the area between the riprap is now dirt.
and it's now, they reloomed it.
They reloamed it.
I'm not
right.
sure if he's reseeded it.
But this isn't loam that was extending into the area of growth before. This
No.
is actually cut back into the lawn.
Yeah, the growth that you were talking about, that where you pulled out that
Yeah.
briar, the bullbriar, is this area in here.
Okay.
And
How
you-
much did you cut it back, the cat briar? How, do you
It
know?
looks like about 6 feet, but, I mean, you can see it's still in the woods there.
Oh, it's still all over
It's
that.
all in the-
It's awful. It's just awful.
But I mean, it's,
And let me say, the reason why it's so bad is because when you do construction like this and you increase the amount of runoff, that's why it's watering this whole area. And you're also exposing it to light that it wasn't exposed to before. So within the construction process, you are aggravating this condition of having these invasives. And I
So-
think we have to recognize that and figure out how we deal with it, because this
So
whole
gonna say,
place
so
is.
what is
I
the
don't-
solution option?
I don't know what the solution option is, but I think we need to recognize that this construction work created that extreme condition. It was there to begin with,
Right.
and it's 10 times worse than it was before,
Because of the light.
because of the light in the water
So
runoff.
should we be talking about total removal of that invasive on the site?
Yes, I think we should be, and replanting. That's what we should be doing ideally, because it's really bad in there. And it's only gonna get worse. You can cut it back 6 feet, it's gonna grow out 16 feet. Because it's on the edge now, it's getting all this water running down, it's getting all that light.
Wasn't the water running down before? I mean, it's a pretty steep drop.
I know, but once you have a lawn, whereas you had other vegetation there, now you have much less pull-up, you know.
well-watered lawn.
White road. Yes, we noticed that.
That's true.
We
It
noticed
was
that.
pretty deep.
I think they should go in there another 20 feet and take it all out and replant with natives. I
The
mean,
invasives.
really, take
Go-
all those
getting rid of the
invasives out.
invasives.
Well,
That's-
what's this here that we see?
It's mostly cat briar that we saw in there.
No, what's remaining? Because Jim just said they took out, going back to the higher vegetation, right?
Yep.
So that when you said it took out about 6 feet, you're talking about from the edge of the loam
Where the
to-
lawn was, back in.
Back
And-
in.
And again, I'm just gauging it from this picture. I didn't do it, and I wasn't off the sidewalk,
No,
so
I understand that, but my question is, are you talking about clear cutting this? Because it looks like this is something other than what they removed.
Yeah, and I don't know what's
Yes.
left, John. I don't
Right.
know what's
Agreed.
left in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks okay, but I agree that what we saw before was pretty,
It was
it looked
awful.
like the little shop on Main Street.
And you can still, you can, I mean, how far are you gonna go in? I mean, we get.
Yeah,
the
right,
property
right.
line.
No, the property line is down the bottom of the
Then you're gonna be
hill.
in the 25
Well,
foot,
well,
no.
yeah, exactly. But the other problem is that if you remove it, are you destabilizing the soil?
Slope.
The slope. So it is an invasive and it is grown in.
You're destabilizing all of this anyway.
I think
So
for me,
why do we
Yeah, but this
allow
isn't the s- this
destabilization,
isn't-
you know,
this
for
is-
that, and, you know?
For me, the question is making sure that there isn't re-encroachment into the area where removal occurred. You're gonna have to essentially take
impossible
out
otherwise. It's
an
gonna come
amazing
right
area.
back. Yeah.
I don't know that I have the answer to that, but I know that there are treatments that are pursued that control these types of invasives. And maybe one of the things that we can do is investigate that.
I think we need to go back to this site though, because this is one of, I think, the most extreme that we've seen. And I think when we think about allowing enormous clearing for houses, and it's all permitted, that's what we do. But when we think about asking someone to do all this extra work, it seems like, oh, that's too much to ask.
it's
But it
not.
shouldn't be too
It
much
shouldn't
to
be too much.
ask, you know? Not when this sort of, I mean, this whole area now by the stream, it's destroyed almost. I mean, you're not gonna get any of the habitat that we protect is now degraded
Overrun.
and overrun completely, you know? So
Wasn't
we
it-
need to figure out something.
Wasn't it pretty overrun? Remember when we lost Dr. Carr?
Yes.
But there
Wasn't
wasn't
that
this
one
particular
reason?
stuff in there. This is that cat briar that even animals wouldn't be able to walk through here, John. I mean, this is extreme stuff, and it's only come in the last 20 years. It came up.
But it was very heavily vegetated
It was
when we were there.
vegetated,
With
yeah.
the
Early
thorn.
be-
What was the thorn bush? Remember, the whole thing was, they had the bushes.
No,
had
I don't
the
mean
Even on the
you.
hill, you could, it was,
Yeah,
it was a nightmare when we started the survey, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Oh, I
that
can
plant
only
was.
imagine.
That was at the top of the hill. You
Yeah.
could barely even see Martha's old house. I mean, that's how.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I remember. So it looks like it has grown, but I don't think it was pristine when we first went out there, however many years ago, 3 years ago?
I guess I'm not suggesting it was pristine. What I'm saying is problems that we hear have been greatly aggravated and exacerbated by the construction. It's a direct result of the construction because of the
clearing,
light.
due to the clearing and the light.
Exactly.
But can I just one thing
So
is,
it's sort of like part of cleaning up the whole construction. We need to have them deal with the consequences of the construction on this lot.
okay, we're beyond we're now like reached over the limit of work to figure out what we did with
Yes.
the cat briar. And yes, it's gonna grow back.
Yes.
We can propose to the buyers that they, with the, you know, the approval of the board, that they can reach, you know, go in that same amount, 6 feet or whatever we've got there, and on a yearly basis, clear it. Whether they do it or not, I don't know.
Right.
I don't think that's a good approach. I think the developer should be responsible before they sell it to the poor homeowner and say, this is as good as I can get it, and not leave it up to the person who buys the house. It's the developer who has changed the location, and the developer is responsible for leaving that site as good as possible. And that site, the site is not as good as possible. All that downhill section is is despicable right now in terms of environmental quality.
The question I have is whether or not, in the case of this project, whether we've passed the point of imposing that due to the previous conditions.
And that's a legitimate question.
And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think I totally agree with what you're saying. I totally agree, but in the case of, we're looking at this at the end of the project, and it's not something that was previously a condition, and we're talking about imposing something on that now.
But sometimes we don't know exactly what the
Okay.
consequence is going to be of this type of construction. We don't know, any more than if there was like a flood down here that was unforeseen or something.
Right.
So it's more on those lines.
And trying to get this sort of, where it's only a partial close-up, we still have this lot right here, this is the area that we're talking about, where we cleared out to come before you on. And
Are you asking for an extension?
we're not asking
that
for an
other lot?
extension. No, we're trying to, we haven't filed for lot 1 yet.
What did we get?
Because the lot one.
Yeah. Lot one.
Is
they wanna
it-
con-
But we don't have an approval, right?
You just sent an email this week.
He wants an extension on the order of conditions.
All right, I'm mistaken then. Okay, I didn't think we had lot 1 done yet.
Well, I don't know what you mean by done.
Approved.
An approved order of conditions for 1?
I don't recall.
I don't
I
either.
thought there was one.
I did too. I thought it was all,
I thought there were 3 lots that were approved.
and there was one that was away. That
Yeah, no,
didn't
the
need it.
lot 2 was definitely out, but I didn't think we filed it. I apologize, I misspoke. And like I said, I'm just not sure how, number one, how far you can go in.
I don't either. I'm more concerned with the first point you made, Mike, and that was, if you were to take out all of this vegetation, or all of the invasive vegetation, what happens to the slope?
Yes.
That's really a big drop-off. And I'd be concerned with the ability of the homeowner or the developer or anybody to maintain that elevation here.
I'm not suggesting clear
Even with
cutting.
plantings, that would be difficult. You're
Sure would.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
But to remove 100% of the invasive might mean
Invasives.
clear cutting. If,
No, weren't there there were trees in there. There are mature
There
trees
are-
in
There are
there.
some, yep.
And there are
There are.
it's all the
saplings as
undergrowth
well.
that's doing that's doing the bulk of the stabilization.
Why don't we take a look at it, because if I follow Jim correctly, he's talking about, this looks like what's remaining from what was removed back 6 feet from this line here, back towards the taller growth.
That's how I read it.
And if that's true, then, maybe they could extend it furthermore without losing all of this vegetation. I don't know how far you could go, because
Yeah, you're
You'd
right
have
at
to
the
have a
edge. You've
helicopter
got to
to
be
come in.
right at the edge of the precipice
We're
there.
gonna, just over this bank is where
Yeah.
it drops down to the stream. Or the wetland channel.
yeah.
Right. The area, another question, unrelated. The areas of riprap, I assume, are directly related to the contours and the low point for the flow.
Correct.
Okay.
And
So
that was where you saw the breakout when you did your sidewalk,
all
from
right.
what Jim said.
So that's the basis of where the areas of
That's why
riprap
they're
were.
exactly
Perfect,
there.
okay, yep. And the intent is not to reseed the areas of soil between the areas of riprap, but just to let them,
Maybe we should bring in a landscape design specialist who can look at this site for us and advise us as to how it could be.
do you have a
Properly,
a landscaper and a designer involved in the project on the, from a overall kind of perspective view?
I'm not sure. I'm sure he's got a designer for the landscaping, but is
This
it
is a little more
invasive
specialized to
a
see.
species
In
professional?
terms
I don't know.
You're not gonna, you're gonna have to go to a special.
Yeah.
But it was.
I'm lost here. I thought this was going to be, the loamed area, I thought that was going to be
That's
seeded.
I believe that section's gonna be reseeded, the other part's gonna be left in natural state.
I was just asking of if we're talking about the loam area, this zone in here,
Yes.
my question before was, that was the old edge of the lawn.
Mhm.
They cut it back to here. They cut the lawn back.
Yeah.
This is, then the area that they removed is just the edge of that. And then this is the zone. So is the actual edge of the original lawn this? Because I can't believe that. Because the
No,
amount
it's-
that dropped off, that must have been the original lawn.
Oh, yeah, we were right at the edge.
We were right at the edge.
That
Right.
lawn
We
was
didn't,
right at the
he didn't
edge, yeah.
extend the, when he pulled that, the brush weed out, he just went in and pulled out that specific vine.
Yeah,
Or
whatever.
whatever
right,
it is.
Yeah.
He didn't, and that's why you see these bushes over, this shrubbery and undergrowth in here.
Yeah.
It wasn't taken out because it wasn't that, what Jimmy called,
Cat briar.
he called it
Couple
bullbriar,
comments.
whatever.
Okay.
And that's what I believe where we were at. So there was no additional encroachment in to extend the lawn. It's not like this is where the cat briar was and we went in and just clear cut that. It's
But the old lawn was right up to the
Was
edge.
right up to
so
the edge.
So it
This
looked like you
this
pulled
is
the lawn
lawn
back.
cut back.
Pulled it back.
He did pull it back.
Because he filled it in a little bit
Okay,
to hold the
that's what I-
sides of this.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But the intent would be not to reseed that.
I'm not sure, honestly.
Okay.
Well, you
Right,
can't leave it.
that was the
Something has to be in
discrepancy.
there, otherwise it'll
Right.
wash away.
It'll wash away. 'Cause
He-
I thought
he
Jim
has to.
said that it was gonna
Well, I
seed
guess
it,
he
you
has to
said it
seed
was
something.
not.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my question, it's just,
Or ground cover or
It'd be
something.
seeding or plantings.
I think it should, something should be there
Yeah,
to
I
hold
agree.
it.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I'll
On
I
that
can talk to
cliff?
Tom, but I'm not sure.
right.
Okay.
Right.
But I think we would really benefit from getting someone who could look at this site more specifically and suggest ways that we could improve the quality of this woodland now.
Okay.
Because it's changed so much, and it just changed because of the construction. It's a direct result of the construction work here.
But remember, this is before us as a partial request for a certificate of compliance. So we have to go back to the order of conditions to see if they're in compliance with the order of conditions. And if what you're suggesting, and it sounds very reasonable, but I don't think we can go back and expand the order of conditions.
But if something happened that wasn't within the purview of the order of conditions, as a result that wasn't anticipated, we could still deal with that. You know, I mean, if like, 20 trees got knocked down, or
Right.
something, we would deal with it. And I'm saying this is just as extreme a situation, that it should be dealt with, even if we didn't foresee it in the order of conditions. And I think it's something that we'll possibly see more and more in the future, because some of these invasive vines are so aggressive. So I
We set
think
our
we should-
standard. So
Yeah.
our standard of consideration just got bigger
Yeah,
because of this project, or because of how obvious this project is.
right.
But this stuff
And
was
because
here.
this-
Yes.
It was,
We didn't bring it in or we didn't knock down trees.
it was there, but it's grown tenfold. What we saw 3 years ago, it's grown tenfold, and it's taken over everything else there. I mean, I didn't see any native
Well, any
species there.
invasive is going to have an accelerating rate of growth during a 3-year interval.
Correct.
There's no
Particularly with
question
all this
about
added
that.
water
Just
and
a
light
matter of
and, yeah,
Okay,
degree because of the water discussion.
yeah.
But I think what we have here is something that's a larger issue. And I agree with John. We have to stick with the original order of conditions as far as I'm concerned. Beyond that, with the scale and scope of invasives, I think it would warrant our getting, as a commission, a better handle on that subject to begin with, because we're going to run into more and more of it
Right.
at increasing numbers of sites. And to try and extract something into this particular instance, where we're dealing with a pre-existing order of conditions as a means of remediation, is not the solution we really need.
Mike,
And I think if we look at MAAC and other resources, we'll find out that there is plenty of expertise out there for us to draw upon.
Yeah, I think there is. All right, I agree with it. but-
I don't disagree with you, Arthur. It's just I think we're reluctant, we're a little shy to impose on builders and developers additional environmental cost, whereas we think, oh, that's too much to ask for. When in fact, they're going in there and they're spending hundreds of thousands, $1 million to do things anyway, to build their houses, to do the development. And I don't think we should be quite so concerned and shy, to
I'm
say,
not disagreeing with
and
that
the
point.
environment really matters too.
I'm just saying that if we agreed on that point and we had that position in place beforehand, it would apply here. But I don't think what is being proposed applies here.
Why don't we take a look at it on Saturday, the 8th, and
Okay.
see what it looks like, and there may be some middle ground that, Jim, you can live with, I'm just, my concern is that we stabilize the
Yes.
loam that you can see there
Yeah.
somehow, because I think that will wash away.
No, that has to be, and he wouldn't have loomed it like that if he wasn't gonna stabilize it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nice loom. You can see it was done in 2 sections.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
let's
So he
look at
did
it
put
again.
good loom in.
right.
And this was before he finished it.
Okay. Yeah, and there might be
And I think it was just to bring the grade even with the riprap.
Right.
That's why he had to
Yep.
cut that back.
All right. All right, is that, with your assent to continue this until the 8th of August?
Sure.
Right.
8:30? We'll do Hillcross Street first, and then we'll do Lot 3 on Gun Hill, and then we'll go to Blue Hills. Okay?
Can you find out from us, so that we know at that time what the plan is for that area that's been loamed?
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be reseeded, but I'll double check and get the answer to,
Okay.
Well,
And-
can it be seeded with something that's a native mix rather than lawn?
okay, I'll talk to Tom.
Right, if we could do something like that, then maybe we're putting it in a position to be a defensive buffer.
Right, and along those lines, something that's more resistant to invasives.
Right.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
I agree.
Judith, in terms of clearing the berm, or not the berm, the slope, given the quantity of invasives that are there, can you reasonably remove them without destabilizing the slope and replant something that's gonna, my feeling is that when you remove, in order to remove enough of them to replant the slope, to get them out so that the native plants have the opportunity to thrive, you've destabilized the slope. And I don't know how you take it out while stabilizing the slope and giving your native plants an opportunity.
Well,
Unless I
think
guess
that's
maybe
a-
you're using a mesh, right?
I
If
don't know if you
use-
can get it all out, to tell you the truth.
I think
That's
it's
why
a
they're so
concern.
invasive is,
I
can't
think,
get it out.
I
You gotta
think that's a
rip 'em out
concern,
and
but I
dig 'em
think
out.
it depends on what else is growing on the site, and that's what I don't remember. I don't remember
So you think
what
if there's
else.
enough
If there's
natural
enough-
native plantings
Yeah,
there,
I
you
think
get rid of
could
the
cut these
invasives?
right down to the ground, get them out of there, let the other plants that
Thrive.
exist thrive, and they'll do much, much better, because all of a sudden there'll be light for them. And then at the same time, put in a whole bunch of natives to cover the soil, so that then if there's enough shade, then the invasives can't come along, you know? In the woodlands where
right.
the invasives don't come along, like in whole sections of the Blue Hills that are doing fine, it's because the canopy is thick enough
Right.
that the invasives can't get a foothold. So we'll see on the 8th what else is there. I just don't remember what else is there.
Thank you.
all right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim. Next on the agenda, informational purposes, preliminary subdivision, 33 to 41 Pleasant Street. Good evening, Paul, how are you?
Evening. Evening, Commissioner members.
Now, this is not an RDA or a notice of intent, it's just informational, correct?
Yes, that's correct, yeah. We've submitted a preliminary subdivision plan to the planning board, and it involves 2 properties. One is the O'Neill property at 41 Pleasant Street, and the other property is 33 Pleasant Street, which was an abutting home. It's right here. And so the developer, Celebrity Realty LLC, Rob Celebrity, and I went and met with Joe Lynch and John Thompson to discuss the utility plan for the site and stormwater, and an informal discussion at DPW. And while we were there, we went through a lot of different things, but at one point, Director Lynch asked us to continue the water main that was ending right here, to bring it out to this property here, because some discussions about putting the animal shelter there. The old access road for the dump is right about here. It's right on the edge of this property right there. And so we had, you know, this lot's kind of narrow right here. We just have a proposed house. It's just the same footprint basically in every lot, just to give the neighbors a sense of how it would lay out. And so to bring the water main out to this point and put the hydrant there, we were wondering what the commission's take would be on putting part of the easement in on the edge of the 100-foot no disturb. For the individual homes themselves, we're not going to propose any work in the 100-foot at all, no landscaping, nothing. This would only be the work that just came up because Director Lynch requested us to bring the water line back to this point. Because their intention is to improve the access road and bring a new water main up there, and they want to tie them in to loop them. So we've been out there. It's a pretty open area considering how a lot of this is pretty densely wooded or growth. And there are some trees, we haven't located them yet, we haven't done a survey. They appear to be outside of this easement location we have proposed here. Obviously, if we went forward with it, we'd create a plan and locate all the trees and stake out the easement. So we just wanted to get some feedback from the commission on this approach, bringing the water main back there.
Paul, quick question. If I recall this area correctly from years gone by, did Director Lynch give any reason why the water line wouldn't come in off Randolph Avenue?
He actually may eventually tie in there too. I think what's going on is that they're going to improve the access road in probably a couple phases, it seemed to me. That the initial improvement is going to only come up to where the animal shelter is. And so they wanted to loop that main with this. But eventually, there's some talk about doing some additional fields or something up on the parkland or something. And at that point, they'd bring the main up further and tie into the end of Quarry Lane. But right now, it seemed like from what artists...
Okay, so my assumption then is he's saying, well, this project is potentially in progress. He wants to ensure that there is a water line going through it, because later on it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to do.
Sure.
That.
Yeah, and if they don't end up improving the access road up to the point where Quarry Lane comes out to it, it doesn't really...
Regardless of what they do over there.
Right.
Later. Yeah.
Right now, the whole focus seems to be on the potential of putting the animal shelter right here. So, you know, the easement will be wide enough so if they decide to bring sewer to the animal shelter through this easement, they could too. Or they could come down the street. I don't know. He didn't mention any plans on that.
Thank you.
Do you know what the contours are doing? What the grading, or the existing contours are with the...
Yeah, it's actually fairly flat there. There is topo on this plan. Goes from the beginning of the easements. Looks like it's between 139 and 140. The back of it goes to 142, 143. So it's going up towards the town land.
Is there any way in tying that, and I understand completely, you know, the purpose of it, and it sounds like a legitimate purpose, to run the water line now, but as I'm looking at it, it cuts into that 100 feet. What if you were to move it north? I mean, can you just move it?
Yeah, the only issue is, like, we just grabbed the footprint and put it in here, and I'm not sure that the house would face like that, but there's a significant outcropping of ledge right here. And so we probably already, we'd consider turning the house and making it a deep house and narrow. So if you consider the ledge there, and then we put this easement even further over, which should be one of the better lots in the development at the end of the cul-de-sac, a larger square footage, you know, ends up getting squeezed down pretty good.
Understood. What about, I went back and I looked at the Cerullo plan from 3 years ago, and there are other isolated wetlands around there, and I'm not sure how they...
You mean in the town property or on Missoula's property?
Well, I remember there was a problem with whose property it was.
Yeah, so Fuller's property has a wetlands right here.
Which is south, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're pretty far away from that. We're definitely outside the 100-foot. The 100-foot no disturb reaches the furthest point.
Okay, so this one is what I'm looking at. So that would be essentially south of where the vernal pool is located?
Right. So this would be lot 9 right here, which is this lot right here. This is the right-of-way that goes through the horse farm.
Yeah.
This is the town access road. The town lot is right above here.
It's
So
that,
this property is north of this, it's up past here.
all right, but what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at isolated wetlands right there. See there where it says edge of isolated wetlands?
Yeah, that's off the property, that's on the abutting property, it's Grant. That's not part of the plot. That's pretty far down, that's like.
Oh, this one right here. See where it says edge of isolated vegetated wetlands?
Yes.
Right there. So that is in the same 100-foot
That's all on the.
buffer from the vernal pool,
Zoll's
isn't it?
property, yeah.
Sure it is, but I'm not talking about the property line, but the property lines don't mean anything to us, because we're still measuring from that.
No, I know, but I'm saying this, the vernal pool swing, 100 foot,
Yes.
is much further north
Right.
of the 100-foot buffer.
Okay.
So I think, it's not on this plan because it's down here, but, you know, we filed it, obviously, and had the wetlands that are here.
Okay, yeah, if you did file something,
Yeah.
that we'd be interested in where those
But
wetlands are.
this line reaches the furthest into the
Right.
property.
Right.
That's why we're just, right now, we're just kind of working this out.
Okay. All right, any questions,
No. Thanks for the answers.
comments? Any abutters, members of the public have a question or comment? So you're not asking us to do anything? Anything?
Yeah.
All right.
So you don't, you haven't looked at that lot, what was it, lot number 19, 19, is that what you said?
Nine.
No, the upper one with the house?
Lot 4, yeah.
So you haven't looked at lot 4 to see if there's a layout, as you say, the layout that you currently show isn't real and may not be viable with that lot anyways.
Yeah, the garage is, the ledge outcropping's probably 5-6 feet out of the ground where that
Yeah.
garage is, so, you know, our preference is not to go in there and have to blast that out.
Oh, optimally, I agree, but you could also reorient the house and, as you say, face it
Yeah,
to the
you-
front and the back, and then,
If we made a deeper house here, but if we push this easement all the way into this property, then between the edge of this ledge outcropping and that easement, you're gonna get down to, you know, a really narrow house.
Right.
An unusual house.
Yeah. well, understanding, from my perspective, understanding the potential layout of that house and the possibility of, even if it's running tight along that, you know, the further to the north we locate the water line, the better. And if there's a viable strategy for the layout of that house, and you're right, it's a large piece of property, on the scale of the pieces of property, and it should be a nice house. But reorienting might resolve the issues.
Yeah, the other thing is, since we're gonna bring this water back here, we were gonna have it service this lot too.
Sure.
So it was gonna be used as a combination. Before that, we were just intending to bring the utilities to the cul-de-sac, so. But, you know, if we did it in the dormant time, part of the year, you know, I guess, which is, from what Rich Kirby's told me, late fall and early winter. Did all the work and get it done quickly, and, you know, it would be less than a week's worth of work, probably a half a week at most. You know, and obviously depending on trees and what's out there too, but
One
it's a
additional
pretty
question.
open area, pretty limited. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead. One additional question. If the requested water line were to go through there, at the completion of the work, that would be all natural, there would be no driveway or anything else?
No, we're not, no landscaping, no, yeah. It'd be restored to what the condition was before.
Okay.
If there was a lot of
Temporary
invasive species and you wanted us to plant something else, obviously we'd do that. We'd create a plant schedule for that. You know, we wouldn't, but we're not gonna propose any landscaping or any work on either lot in the 100-foot.
So there's nothing was going to affect drainage either and so on down the line, so
Right.
investigation is very important. Thank
Sure.
you.
All set. Any other questions, comments, public? Okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Good timing, huh? How's that?
Guess we're done.
How'd you arrange that? You planned that, Michael.
I did. Do you want me to put the other tape in, or we're done?
Now, we should finish, yeah, put the other tape in, we have to officially, um, finish.
It's on again.
It is? Okay. So the only thing we have, number 8 on the agenda is additional business. Do we have anything, what's the Fletcher Steel Way letter, Kathy? I just saw that, and I went right by it.
asking for a continuation of the order year.
Which house? Oh, the Finch's house that was doing that work? Yeah,
Is that the one that wanted to go, put the walkway through
Yes.
the wetlands?
yeah.
Okay. And so we issued one, and does that mean they did nothing?
I'm not sure, I received the email and I've really spoken with her. But is there a new rule that says people can
Yes.
request?
Yeah.
And what's the procedure? Do they just submit a letter?
I think they just submit a letter, and there are certain criteria, but it triggers almost all orders of condition that were issued within the last 6 years, and they get an additional 4. And my question was always, do you get an additional 4 from when you request it, or from the end, the 3-year termination point? But I think are they at the 3-year termination point? I'm looking for their letter here.
Might
I
be.
saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
about
did it in
that time.
2012.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about right, yeah.
Yes, I would say they're outside of 3 years.
And I don't think,
Yeah, I think they were doing some interesting stuff.
Here
in
it
there,
is, yeah.
Trying to deal with some of the invasives. What was it they
no,
had
no,
in there?
they were trying to run a pathway through the wetlands, and they wanted an
In
elevated.
addition, yeah, but they were also trying to deal with invasives in a creative way and trying different methodology.
So I'm writing to request that the order of conditions for the above property be extended under the Massachusetts Permit Extensions Act for a 4-year extension. The act grants an automatic 4-year extension to any approval or permit in effect during the period beginning August 15, 2008 and extending through August 15, 2012, beyond its otherwise applicable extension date. The project at 10 Fletcher Steelway was originally approved on July 18, 2012. So they fit within the
Yeah,
parameters of the act, the time parameters. I don't know, do we need to put that on? I mean, it's an extension of an order of conditions. It probably should be on the agenda because it's a public meeting. And it's just under additional business.
is this the new act that
Does
governor put
notification
into
go out?
effect too?
No, I don't think notification does, but I think we have to put it on the agenda.
What is the Mass Permit Extensions Act? Is that something new?
No, it passed, I don't know, 2 years ago
Oh, okay.
or 3 years ago. And it does do what they
Okay.
say it does.
Okay.
That you can extend, if you had a valid order of conditions within that 4 or 5 year period, what is it, for a 4-year
Well,
period?
is it a matter of right, or do we have discretion? Because if it's a matter of right, we don't need to have them come before us or anything. Joe?
No, I don't think they need to come before us, but I do think we need to put it on the agenda, because it's not, I mean, we're making an official proclamation extending an order of conditions. And I think that we have to give public notice, not notice to the abutters, but
Okay.
just put it on the agenda, other than putting it under additional.
So do you want to put on the August 8th agenda?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure, okay.
Yeah, and then we can take a vote right there. So we won't slow them
Oh,
down.
on the sidewalk, oh, fine, that makes sense, sure.
One thing another point?
That's it? Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to know whether we should talk about the discussion. So there's there's gonna be a site walk for Elliott Street with DPW.
Correct.
Do we, is anyone I'm not sure that I can attend it, but is anyone attending it? And is there any discussion we should have in terms of making sure that it's an opportunity to present the points of discussion that we went through in terms of coming to our decision to the DPW?
Correct.
So, is there,
DEP.
what? A DEP, I'm sorry, yeah, DPW. Is there, should we make a concerted effort to make sure that we present all the points of discussion so that
Yes,
so that it's duly considered?
yes, we should.
Okay.
I mean, and I think we can do this in public session. To some extent, it's litigation, which would justify executive session, because it's under appeal, and I've been consulting with John Flynn. But I intend on going on the 22nd.
You do, okay.
And anybody else that could do it, can you make it?
Schedule so far, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to, I'm not sure I can though.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was up in the air in terms of a trial that's getting moved around.
Cool.
But right now, I think I plan on being,
Good.
which is next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So, you know, a number of issues that will be presented is that, you know, they're going to say open space.
Right, I want to do a figure ground diagram.
And one of the concerns that we've expressed in open meeting has been that their calculations of open space and our calculations of open space are like apples and oranges. We haven't been talking in the same terms.
They actually haven't given us the calculation.
They never gave us the calculation that we asked for. However, in their DEP report on page 11 on their appeal, it's a very extensive appeal, and on page 11 they do come up with some numbers. The problem with the numbers is that they're apples and oranges too, because at one point they say that there's a net gain, and at another point they suggest that the footprint of the building is growing by 6,000 square feet. In another place they say the net gain to open space is 600 square feet. So it's hard to match it, and I think, to be honest with you, I think what the issue is whether or not they are including or we are including the part of the foundation that goes down into the earth that accommodates the parking garage. Above that foundational footprint is not just building, the building goes up, but in addition there's a cap. And the cap is somewhat elevated, but on top of that elevated platform is a parking area, which will be outside the front entrance coming in off of Elliott Street.
Mm-hmm.
And so the area of controversy, I think, is probably going to be, is that open space or not? Right. Now, if you get back into our discussion as to whether or not macadam can still be open space, even though it's not green space or even though it's not pervious surface, is it built upon? Well, there's a foundation there, there's an elevation, there's a cap on it, and there are cars on top of it. Is that open space or not? I think that's going to be one of the areas of discussion.
Okay. On to that point, I want to put together what's called a figure ground diagram, and it's basically you take the site and you outline the area that you want to highlight as open or as built upon space, and you color that black, or
Right.
color that a significant color, and you leave the rest of the zone in a clear color, and you get a direct, just by looking at it, you get an instant sense of the amount of coverage that you're talking about, and then do that for the different kind of interpretations of what their interpretation of the site is, what the previous interpretation of the site was, and then what we are striving for, and the variation between those three. And then from that, the discussion, I think that in itself really simplifies the discussion and kind of drives home the point about open space. Because I believe that what they were arguing open space was just non-paved area. I mean, it was not only, they were bringing everything that was either paved or built as non-open space, which I don't think is the right strategy. But I think that's why they came up with they're saying that they were increasing the amount of open space when in reality they're not. They're saying they're increasing the amount of open space because they've reduced the amount of pavement, and therefore they have more open space, which I would argue is not true. But I think we can do that with some simple diagrams. We can.
Is that something that we can put together? And
No, I was going to put it together.
oh, good.
I'll put it together. I just got to pull all my stuff together and then
Okay,
I'll
no,
do it.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of the plan that, see, you know, the oddity here is that we're all trying to pretend the Wizard of Oz behind the screen is not
Right.
there?
Right.
Pay no attention to that guy? Well, that guy, and the elephant in the room, is that this other plan
Right.
that is before the, or could be before the planning board, is something that seems to have been acceptable. This is all stated in public session.
Right.
But they don't want to push that plan. And I don't know whether or not you've got a copy of
I
it.
don't know that I do have a copy. If that was the original plan way back when the original plan they submitted to the planning board, I might have a copy of it, but I don't
It's
believe
to the
that I have
planning board,
current-
not to us.
Yes.
And it might even be a newer one.
Yeah, I
presented to the
don't
planning
believe I
board.
have the newer, I know I don't have the newer one, and I think I
But
have
we
the
were
older
at one
one.
of those meetings together, going back, what, 5 years ago?
I don't remember how many,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Should we be able to get a copy of that from the planning board?
Yes.
So,
I think so.
yeah,
But to be honest with you, I don't know if there were a number of plans
I know,
considered by the
which
planning board.
iteration.
Right, and this particular iteration seems to have some general acceptance, but it's not before us.
I
Yeah,
think
but
it's
we
worth
should,
We should be
No, it
able to
never
look
came
at it
before,
as
right.
as an alternative design, because we do have the right to ask for alternative analysis, as we did with stacking some of the building, you know, making it higher in some areas to give us more open space,
Yeah,
and that
right.
was rejected.
Yeah.
Um,
For no apparent reason. I think it's worth considering what we mean by open space, because there's different aspects to it. If you have open space, even if it's paved, it has a benefit in terms of air quality, so like between buildings, you know, in a dense city, it's good to have open space even if it's paved. But for the interest we protect, we're looking for open space in addition that has grass or something natural. But there's both aspects of open space, you know, even paved open space has some benefit. And I think that we need to kind of think that through as to what we are asking for, and when they're comparing what it actually was in terms of open space, because what was there before, there was some pavement and then some other grass or
Right.
shrubs as well. But there's different ways of thinking about open space and the benefits involved in open space.
Right.
I'm just thinking out loud.
No, and I agree with you. Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
open space is non-built upon space,
Mhm.
but then there's also open space that's non-built upon and green.
Right. The
Right.
question is, what's the appropriate ratio in this instance? And are there guidelines from the state about that? There are in some municipalities, for example, in New York City,
Mhm.
you have to have open space,
Mhm.
but only a certain portion of it has to be green.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a minority portion. I just don't remember
yeah.
having worked
And the
there for
arrangement of open space
17 years.
matters
I remember
too.
all those politics in the New York Times.
And the arrangement of open space matters too. So you don't just have like 2 square feet here and then another 2 square feet, and that, you need to have it, you know, aggregated somehow to make it worthwhile. So I think one of the arguments they were making was, you know, you have some narrow strip someplace and that's valuable. Well, it really isn't in terms of public access or use and enjoyment. You
Right.
know, so it's the arrangement of the open space that matters too.
Well, we do have to be careful, it's private property, so
Mhm.
we can't impose a, you know, public access component of it. Well, that's not entirely true, we could condition it, I guess, as we did with 2 Granite Avenue, you know, the access to the public
Right.
on the banks of the Neponset
Yeah.
River. But we do have to be respectful of the,
Mhm.
you know, the private component of the land. But one of the questions that I have is, what about open space on the train side, the track side? Because if they're including that, that's certainly not something that's going to benefit people.
Mhm.
Because it's basically in an area where you don't want people because of the proximity of the tracks and the trains.
Sometimes, if I recall correctly, there's a visual aspect to open space, i.e. people seeing it from a passing train as open space versus a building being right on the
track.
street or the track or whatever.
That,
it is.
fair point.
Mm.
That's a fair point.
So those are the types of things we can expect, I think.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I think your
No,
idea
no.
is a great one. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah,
What
I
did you
think
call it?
that's a really good idea.
What's the kind of plan?
A figure ground.
Figure ground.
And it's just really a positive, it's positive, negative. There's no interpretation other than just the two things that you're trying to compare. So in this case, the building footprint and the site footprint.
Okay.
And then another one that shows the paved and building footprint and the site footprint.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
helpful.
Sounds good.
All right, good. Anything else? I think we're ready to adjourn.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
not bad, 9:20. Huh?
It's going to be a record.
Give me a record. Kathy, do we have anything to sign?
Yeah, there's two. We have, 1383 Brushwood Road and 44 Cliff Road for the Civic Quiet.
Oh, so do we need to, are we good to shut this down?
Yeah, we're good to go. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.